Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. So I think we're about to start. So I want to welcome you to this important meeting today. And you are all welcomed. And I want to remind us again that this training is supported by the British High Commission. And our main objective is to mobilize civil society for COP28 and beyond. So a lot of you, I know you're already getting ready to attend COP, but it's very important that you understand what the COP is all about. When we say COP, it means Conference of Parties. And I know a lot of you have gotten your accreditation. We also know that some of you are still struggling to get accreditation, while some of you are still trying to get funding to participate in the meeting. Whatever level you are in, please, we can support ourselves. Whatever we have, we can share information on our WhatsApp group. And I'm so happy that a lot of us have joined the WhatsApp group. In the next 2-3 days, we are going to share a lot of information as we all are getting ready to travel to the United Arab Emirates in Dubai for the COP. I want to thank all of you that have been attending this training, and I know you have gained one thing or the other. And today, you are going to have a better insight into what we do in COP, basically. Let me tell you today, the reason why all of us are going to COP is about those negotiations. Because at the end of the day, important policy decisions are going to be made at the negotiations. And we all know that an important issue that we're all rooting for in COP28 this year is the loss and damage fund, and also the issue of climate and health, and the global goal on adaptation and finance. These are critical issues that everybody really wants to know the outcome, because these outcomes means a lot for us, especially in Africa and the whole developing world, who have not caused climate change, but we are at the front lines experiencing the harshest impact of climate change. I want to thank all of you who have made it a point of duty to be part of this training. And we want to encourage you to continue to stay connected with us, because apart from COP, we're still going to do a lot of programs that is going to involve all of you. Please, let's stay connected during this training, after this training, during COP, and after COP. On this note, I want to welcome you again to this meeting. My name is Titi Lokwe Ngozi Akosa. I'm the Executive Director of Center for 21st Century Issues. I am one of the organizations that is actually driving this program. Thank you very much. So I hand over right now to Ms. Efiwat, who is our moderator today. Ms. Efiwat, are you already online?
Yes, I am here.
Thank you, ma. So take over. Well done.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yes. So, like Titi has said, the role of the CSOs in the UNFCCC negotiation process is very critical. They have an observer status within the UNFCCC framework, but we know that as observers, the influence that they hold with countries is quite significant for countries' engagement in climate change negotiations. So the first session is an overview of the UNFCCC negotiations. What is UNFCCC? What is negotiations? What is this process like? We all know that what brought about the UNFCCC, which we know as the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, is the issue of climate change, which is gradually becoming the most global phenomenon that all countries have to deal with. And we now know that in addressing issues of climate change, emerging trends are coming in that is making us realize that climate change is beyond the environment, and it has huge implications for economy of countries, particularly for developed countries, of which Africa and Nigeria is one of them. So I would like to start off by saying that the UNFCCC process briefly describes the process of governments meeting periodically to explore on how to enhance discussions around implementation of climate change. It is a political forum. It is a technical forum. And for some of us here that have been opportune to attend and participate in the COP, I'm sure we can all agree that if you do not really understand what the process is, it seems as if it's a chaotic environment. It's full of chaos. But for the initiated, for those that understand, they could see the orderliness in the chaos. We have today with us Ambassador Richard Humar. I've worked with you in several spaces, and I'm glad that you are here today to be the one to tell us in detail what the UNFCCC process is. Richard Abubakar Humar is an advocate and entrepreneur who has a strong focus on climate change and sustainable development. He has worked both nationally in Nigeria and internationally in over 15 countries to promote young people's involvement in the fight against climate change and the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I would like to add that even beyond young people, he has had the privilege even of bringing together governments, development partners, donors in addressing issues of climate change. This he has done with his 10 years of experience, over 10 years of experience as a grassroots campaigner and student advocate in areas such as climate change, advocacy campaigns, transparency, and critical issues that impact vulnerable communities. Now we know with what he has done, it has led him to be recognized as the youngest international youth peace tourism ambassador in Nigeria at the age of 22. And 3 years later, at the age of 25, was appointed the youngest special assistant to Governor Muazu Babangida Aliyu, whom he served for 5 years in 2 capacities. So he was a special advisor on protocol and diplomatic relations, and was also a special advisor on green program. He later became the senior special assistant on SDGs and partnership to Governor Abubakar Sani Bello in 2016. This has provided a very good foundation for what he has been doing and how he launched it further. Currently, Richard is the founder of Youth Wage of Nigeria, which is a community-based organization in Minna, Niger State. And in different spaces where Richard and I had to talk, there's a lot that he has done across the communities. And I think recently, about 2 weeks ago, we're still discussing on some things we would like to do on solarization and renewable energy. So through this organization, it has led various advocacy and campaign initiatives on climate change locally and internationally. And one notable achievement was the hosting of the first West African Greens Conference in Minna, Niger State. Additionally, he established a demonstration forest at the Niger State College of Education to combat deforestation in the state, which is one of the largest producers of charcoal and firewood in Nigeria. We know that this, in terms of afforestation as a nature-based solution, is also going to be very critical in the new regime of carbon markets that is coming into the country now. This project has attracted interns from 2 prestigious universities in the UK and government institutions in Nigeria. Richard holds several positions and memberships in various organizations, including serving as the chairman of Zafra Foods Nigeria Limited, which is critical to the present administration's emergency call on food security. So we have a role to play there. He's the founder of RAW Multi-Concept, co-founder of Terra Green Technologies. I mentioned solarization and renewable energy earlier. He's the board secretary of CAS 2030. He's also a member of the World Bank IMF CSO group member of the United Nations Major Group on Children and Youth, Global Young Greens, Pan-African Climate Justice Network, which is PACJA, and the CSDA and the Climate Sustainable Development Framework. In addition, sorry, I lost that information somewhere there. Okay, so in addition, is a dedicated advocate for climate change and sustainable development, and he works tirelessly to involve young people. And like I said, it's beyond the young people. He's really pulling together a whole host of different stakeholder groups in the fight against climate change, both nationally and internationally. So on this note, I would like to invite Ambassador Richard Abubakar Umar for his presentation. And I know it's going to be more than presentation, capacity enhancement, training, on overview of the UNFCCC negotiations process. Mr. Richard, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much.
So you can take the
accolade. Thanks. Thank you very much. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know. I will first of all start by apologizing because I've been on transit all through, and this came in very, very impromptu, but I'm here. I will give you my best. I don't know if I shared my slide in Word format. I shared it with my office so that they could help me with the slide. So I don't know. It didn't come in early, but I have the Word format. I don't know if it's going to come up so that I can just go into it.
Yes, I think you can have the presentation in any format because it's supposed to really be like a discussion. So what are doing now? So please go ahead.
So thank you very much, Mr. Kemi. It's now up. As you have already introduced, you've given us a background. The United Nations Framework on Climate Change is an international treaty aimed at addressing the issues of climate change. And these issues come up as negotiation process, which happen annually at COP. So it started in some 28 years ago. I think we're witnessing the 28th COP now. And this is an avenue where all parties, as in countries are referred to as parties, and they come on board, they come together to address their climate issues, and which is the supreme decision-making body of the convention. The COP meets annually to review implementation of the convention, assess progress made, and decisions on climate-related issues. These are especially progress made, like tracking of progress, especially like from the Paris Agreement where it was reached and signed. Each country now has its own NDCs, which they review periodically. I think within a space of 5 years, they do a review of their national determined contribution and the non-determined. Non-determined. There are two contributions: national determined and non-determined. So they do the review annually, and this, each country reviews it periodically 5 years. Then they see the progress made, and these are tracked at COP. Can you go to the next page, please? So negotiation process happened through subsidiary groups, which these subsidiary groups are in different levels. Now I'm just going to blend over. Let me just give you overall. The overall of UNFCCC negotiation process plays a crucial role in fostering international collaboration, cooperation in addressing challenges posed by climate change. It provides a platform for countries to come together, share knowledge, exchange experience, work together collectively, and mitigate and adapt to climate change. So the COP gives room, especially for those who are prepared to be at COP. Like I always say that if you're going to COP, you're going there, it's like an open market where you come with your agenda, with your thematic focus or a position, to achieve ABC of what you know you want to achieve for your country, for your organization, and for your community. Depends on which sector you belong. So the COP, we have different levels of negotiations that happen at the COP. First of all, we have the Conference of Parties. This is the highest level negotiation part of the COP, where all countries that have ratified that are ratified in the UNFCCC come together annually to review progress, as I've said earlier, and negotiate on new agreements on which direction to go. Like last year at Sharm el-Sheikh, the loss and damage was adopted as a new topic to be addressed in the COP. So you see, as Titi gave her background, she talked about loss and damage as a crucial issue to be discussed and as a crucial focus for us as developing countries. So loss and damage is for mostly beneficial to developing countries because we are the most vulnerable in terms of climate change, and we look forward to get those funding in order to see how we can push for projects that are developmental to communities and create a great sustainable economy for our people. So other subsidiary body of implementation, the SBI. The SBI support work of the COP by addressing reports from parties, provide guidelines.
Hello, Mr. Richard. Please hold on. I would like to say that if you are not speaking, please can you be on mute? There is a lot of interference so that we don't disrupt the process. And then also, please, in the chat box, we have the attendance form. Please kindly go there to register your attendance at this meeting. Mr. Richard, you can continue, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so the subsidiary body serves as body of implementation, the SBI. I just read it out. Let me take it again. Support the work of COP by addressing various implementations and technical issues. It considers reports from parties, that's from countries that are labeled as parties. And again, there's something I want to let you know that in the COP process, there are a lot of abbreviations that if you're a newcomer coming in, you might need to go through the appendix of COP to understand all this, because when you go into negotiation rooms or when you are in different sessions, you'll be hearing them calling abbreviations. So in order to be updated with all these abbreviations, you have to understand them, because you'll be hearing their full meaning, but you'll just be picking up. Can we go to the next slide? So the SBI is in charge of collecting reports. So the ad hoc working group, again, on the Paris Agreement, the APA, was established to negotiate implementation guidelines for the parties' agreements. It focuses on issues related to mitigation, adaptation, transparency, finance, and capacity building. The APA's work is crucial for effective implementation on the Paris Agreement. So you see, these levels of negotiations are for parties. There are different components at the COP. Like for this APA, they are in charge of adaptation, transparency, finance, mitigation. So countries go through these channels to make their submissions or to be guided in order to ensure that their implementation process is in line with the UNFCCC convention. So these different levels of negotiations allow for in-depth discussions and negotiations of various aspects of climate change, ensuring that all relevant issues are addressed and decisions are made collectively. Yeah, like you see, one of the major breakthroughs for COP was in 2015 when the Paris Agreement was accepted by all parties. that this should be the framework, working framework for tweet to ensure that we achieve, each country achieve its NDCs. So you see, collectively, and again, before they reach that agreement, why negotiations always keep coming up is that you find out that some countries are not comfortable with certain policies, let's say, captured in most of these submissions. So most of these documents. So they'll prefer to drag on it because they know they'll be at the receiving end or at the losing end. So they rather drag the matter to see how they can get a comfort or a landing, a soft landing, if the policy comes into implementation. That's why when you go to COP, you notice everybody is, I'm coming to the negotiators now, the classes of negotiators, everybody is lobbying this, everybody is seeking support in order to remain safe in line with all the specified guidelines. So that is basically what most of these discussions are all about, negotiations are all about. Then now we have negotiators. We have different types of negotiators. Can you please go to the next negotiators now? Yeah, we have different types. We have two major negotiators. We have the negotiators from the Global South and the Global North. The Global South is where we are, Africa and other developing countries. The Global South often faced with greater challenges of dealing with climate change impacts due to their vulnerability and typical advocates typically advocate for that and their specific needs, such as financial assistance, technology transfer, capacity building to support mitigation and adaptation efforts. So the Global South are the most vulnerable community that emits little and have more impacts of climate change. You see, Africa over the years statistically have been emitting less than 4% of global emissions, but we have the devastation of climate change hitting us more. So the Global South, on the other hand, negotiators from Global North, the Global South always are at the COP to present evidence-based climate crisis in order for them to get more funding to solve their climate crisis or to even adapt or mitigate. But on the other hand, the negotiators from the Global North represent developing countries, including the European countries, the North Americans, and part of the Asian countries. These countries have historically been major contributors to greenhouse gas emissions and poses greater financial and technological capabilities. Negotiators from the Global North often emphasize the importance of taking shared responsibility for climate actions, supporting developing countries in their efforts and promoting sustainable development. As I said earlier, I'm trying to go ahead. So the Global North are mostly developed countries. They are the largest polluters. They are the ones with the sophisticated companies. They are the ones emitting a lot of greenhouse gases at the detriment of the climate crisis that happen in the Global North, in the Global South. So the Global North, they are always there as defenders. They are like football defenders when we go to COP. They are always there. Their multinational companies are there. They are always interested in what happens on the floor of the COP, because they know whatever decision, as you heard earlier, I mentioned, is the supreme decision as regards environment and the United Nations. So you'll be wondering why you see people like Bill Gates and the rest at COP and they are not civil society or they are multinational companies, because we're in the era where multinational companies' decision rule every their country's decision, because we're in the era of profits and advanced technology. So if advanced technology is going to be emitting a lot of greenhouse gases and bring in more money for their economy, they rather maintain that status quo than and are willing to even pay for the damages and not want the global south to even develop, because they'll be like, don't worry, we'll be feeding you so long they are feeding the market. You just be consumers, don't emit, let them be emitting. Then that's where I have my reservations about a lot of things actually. But the next slide, please. So they are more of the defending parts, and they are there and ready at any time to ensure that their interest is protected. That's why, as Madam Kemi said, you always see the COP as rowdy as possible. They always try to hold side meetings. They always try to hold meetings within and outside the COP venues. For those of you that have been experienced, you'll be wondering why the COP meetings happen. No, but you'll be having meetings again in order. Those meetings are meetings that actually are like lobbying negotiators. They lobby negotiators to agree with their own proposals before going into the negotiating rooms. And these meetings happen middle of the night, early hours of the morning. And if you are there for COP, to just go and attend pavilion meetings or activities based on the program, you will understand that the bigger meetings happen in the middle of the night. So the global south, okay, sorry. So overall, the negotiations between the global south and the north aims to strike a balance between the responsibilities and actions of developed and developing countries, ensuring that efforts to address climate change are fair, equitable, and inclusive. So as I said earlier, the global north always come as the big boys because they are the superpowers. You notice the G7 or G8 are within that circle. So I'm coming to that now to even highlight the disparities between the bigger countries and the smaller countries, because I was privileged to be part of 11 young people that advocated for youth inclusion and participation on the SDG document in New York. So I participated at the negotiations there as observers, of course. So I understood how the power play comes to play on the floor of negotiations. Despite the fact that we're there as observers, you see how developed countries make proposals like with their full chest, they are not scared. Then you see countries like, that's why countries like China, like my next stuff is talking about the G77 and China, that's the developing countries. The G7 is a group formed in order. China left the G8, it was formerly G8, now it's G7, left the G8 in order to join developing countries, because they say even China is still a developing country, so that they can be a forceful voice on the negotiation tables. So if you notice, Chinese governments are always here in Africa giving us different kind of financial support just to be on the same page. All is not happening unconsciously, or they don't know what they are doing. They know what they are doing because they know that most of these funds and projects will come to the developing countries. And they are here with their companies, like I told you earlier, the multinational rules the decision-making of each country now. So they come ahead, they've calculated it well. It's not that they are doing developing countries anything good, but the truth of the matter is that they have understood that when they stand with the developing countries, they give them a level of force in order for them to have a voice too on the table, because China is part of the G77. So when they come to the table and China is part of the developing countries, it now gives us a strong strength. And this coalition was established in 1964 to promote their interest and enhance their negotiating power, as I said earlier, in the international forums, including climate change negotiations, The G77 originally comprises of 77 member countries, now expanded to include over 130 countries from the global south. So this group advocates for the principles of common but differentiate responsibilities. So they are just here to protect their interests, and they take the lead in addressing the issue of climate change in developing countries. So they stand as that voice for the remaining 130 countries. So they come together, and the name, they were 77 countries before, but now they've expanded to 130, but they still call them the G77 and China. So next slide, please. So these are different groups that get to be lobbied, and due to they get to lobby and to be lobbied as well, because even the lobbyists follow them up and to see how they can have a common ground. And that's why you notice the NCC, the Department for Climate Change, we have our Nigerian negotiators. Each country has its own negotiator, but we always come together to have the African position by the League of African Negotiators. We have a League of African Negotiators that before the COP, they will all meet as part of the pre-COP activities. That's why most of the focal points, that's the head of delegation of each country, they arrive COP earlier to attend pre-COP meetings. And these pre-COP meetings are meetings of consultations by all these countries in order to have one common ground. And if you notice, even as civil society, over the years, we've been having position papers annually before COP. We always have our pre-COP meetings so that as civil society, we have a position of which direction, what is our interest in COPs, because all of us cannot be in all the meeting rooms. So, but when you know the focus of your country, that's why most of the times a lot of people have the opinion that climate change is a monopolist kind of system. You have one focal point for both private sector, civil society, even if you're expecting grants. Yeah, because they want to track your progress. They want to see if really your commitment to the Paris Agreement is achieved. So we have to, it's a collective idea. Initially, we see it from a different perspective as civil society. We try to be more on the criticizing part, not solution providers. But from my own narrative, I got to understand that if you keep speaking about the problems and you're not providing solution, or you're not providing a robust conversation around policy makers, the community and the people, even when it comes to policy implementation, there will be crisis. But when there's a robust conversation and a robust mechanism of carrying everybody along, of involving everybody, and because the conversation is so wide, the conversation is so big, we have to break it down. And that's why, if some of you notice, we have the young climate negotiators, where they are before it was just about expert. And again, the thing is that it's like a different school entirely. So which component are you carrying? Which component are you good at? So that's why, if you notice, there's this program for young climate negotiators globally, which each country have young people that are already following the trends to understand step by step what negotiations is all about, and what is their country position and interest, and what is the global south interest, because the thing expands. When you come with your own personal interest as a country, you go to the sub-regional level or regional level, African level, you now mainstream your own interest into the African level. So you now have the League of African Negotiators. You mainstream your own interest there and make sure it falls in the position paper of the. And if you notice, in this year's African Week, I believe this is the first time in the history of African Climate Week that we had a synchronized position by both civil society, the African leaders, and even the private sector coming together to say this is the position of Africa. And His Excellency President Ruto was able to read that position paper to the hearing of the world. And I was so impressed that Africa has one voice. Africa is now speaking under one umbrella. And that's why I am so interested to be at this COP this year, because I know it's going to be an unusual COP, because it's not about the negotiations now are not being sugar-coated or being foil-coated in diplomatic terms. No, it's now a cross-board approach. The civil society are saying the same thing. The parties are saying, which are the countries of Africa are saying, and the private sector of Africa too have aligned in the same direction. So it's all about green economy for Africa, direct foreign investment for climate projects in Africa. You want us to have carbon sinks? Okay, we have 1,000 hectares of land. How much are you investing for this? How much are we getting back for projects and other things? So for the development of Africa. So everybody's on one page. In order to deal with the outcome of the African Climate Week, and that brings good signal that this is the position of Africa for this year's COP. And with our League of Young Climate Activists, some of them are our friends and colleagues, we know that they have been putting in their best. They've been going for meetings in different countries. They've been learning the trend. They are now understanding gradually. Corruption even happens at the negotiations. Some negotiators have been lobbied, invited for private meetings, handed brown envelopes in order to achieve the interests of those developing countries or multinational companies. So it's like a warfare of sorts.
Mr. Richard, you went off.
But if you are not patriotic, informed about the diverse people, then definitely you see white Benjamins inside brown envelope. But for how long will it serve you at the detriment of our people? So these are the areas.
Mr. Richard, we can't hear you.
We need to understand that in COP investment, like last year at their side event, they won a grant, the Blue Line Metro, they had 10,000 euros. Lagos State got 5,000 euros for the Blue Metro. So I think for the carbon cut, Lagos State made a presentation of their climate change investment plan at the COP, at their side event. Though the governor was supposed to be there to make that presentation, but he did it virtually. But they got an investor that invested 100 million euros in that investment plan. So you see, Lagos State is going there and is already attracting direct foreign investment into their economy. So, and this year, we have other dogged governors too that are leading their delegation because of their commitment to climate change. Like the governor of Niger State too is the one leading delegation. He has been disturbing them anti-Kemi at UNFCCC because he wants most of his development experts to be there. So because he just finished the Green Economic Summit, he brought in experts from all over the world. I happened to be on the panel at that economics summit. It was an honor to be on the panel for my state, home state. Despite the fact that for the level we've reached was because of our work and advocacy and push. Because some of these people, we get to know them personally. So the way we approach them is like you're talking to your big brother at home, because some of the PAMSECs, the commissioners of environment have succeeded and people we've known, we've grown with, and we've gotten to know. So the state have been able to put a lot of things in perspective, but have not been able to channel it to the open COP market, as I often call it. So this time around, we are seeing states making commitments like to see that. And again, one of the things I'll say before I conclude is we promoting our own local innovations, especially in Nigeria, in Africa. Let's see how these green innovations, we can make it a brand and a model to be marketed, even within the African continent. If we can, provide climate solutions that can solve our problems on the continent, then definitely we can now evolve our own economy and as well add value to our own foreign exchange. Like in Nigeria, we have the young guy that is into automobile that has developed solar cars from Maiduguri. Imagine Nigeria pushing it through ECOWAS to ensure that those cars are being bought within the ECOWAS sub-region and even within the African continent. You can imagine how much direct foreign investment that can bring. So if we can expand on our technology base and see how we can even support each other on the continent, I believe we have a long way to go. And these are the kind of conversations we need to expand and open up on different in different forums we find ourselves. Let's open them on those forums so that we could keep updating ourselves with this notable information. So in conclusion, the UNFCCC negotiations are crucial for addressing global challenges of climate change. These negotiations bring together nations, stakeholders, and subsidiary bodies to foster dialogue, collaboration, and consensus building through multilateral corporations. You see, I told you that multilateral corporations and the UNFCCC negotiation play a vital role in shaping climate policy, fostering sustainable development worldwide by emphasizing role, I guess. Sorry, I'm on transit, I'm using my phone. By importance of stakeholders, promoting inclusive decision-making process, this negotiation aim to address the urgent need for action in combating climate change. So you've had it multilateral corporations, through multilateral corporations. So you can see from the beginning, I've been telling you that multinational nations take. So we have to as well see how we can open up more conversations, especially in the private sector, to see that we have more private sector involvement in terms of climate action. And again, in innovation, we should see how we can evolve our innovations around climate solutions and see how we can patent them, domesticate them, and even push them into the open market. So I think with these few words I've said or I've shared, I believe you must have picked one or two things, and I'll wait if there will be questions for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. You will be sharing this presentation. I can see a question in the comments asking if there will be access to the documents. So we will share this presentation with us after the training. So I will just do a quick rundown on what Mr. Richard had said. And like I mentioned earlier on, I said the CSUs, they play a key role in international climate change negotiations. And it is critical that we build our capacity, because the UNFCCC has a clear policy on the CSOs participating at the UNFCCC negotiations. So like what Mr. Richard had said, he gave us a brief on what the UNFCCC is and the objective of that convention, which is to stabilize greenhouse gas concentrations at levels that will prevent dangerous anthropogenic human-induced interference with the climate system. He gave us the overview of the different levels of the negotiations. He spoke about the different constituted bodies under the UNFCCC. He mentioned the COP as the supreme decision-making body. He mentioned the SBI. Well, I would like to add also that aside the subsidiary body of implementation, there is also the subsidiary body on scientific and technological advice, So this, we also have the CME, which is the Conference of Parties to the Paris Agreement, and then the Conference of Parties to the Kyoto Protocol, both of which are instruments in the UNFCCC negotiations. The different constituted bodies all have their terms of reference, and they all have the different roles that they play within the negotiations. But like you said, the COP is the highest decision-making body. Then he spoke about the global north and the global south. By the global north, is speaking about the developed countries majorly. And these are countries that have, in terms of historical responsibility, we say they are the major contributors to the GHG emissions in the atmosphere. It is also recognized that they have the greater financial capabilities as well as technological capabilities to address the impacts of climate change. Then he spoke about the global south, where we have developing countries and we have Africa, where we would also come down to Nigeria. They do not contribute as much to the emissions, but they suffer the impacts more because of their vulnerability. And he mentioned that what we take to negotiations, what we put on board has to do with financial assistance, technology transfer, capacity building, all these things to support mitigation and adaptation efforts in our different countries. So like he said overall, the negotiations aim to strike a balance between the responsibilities and actions of developed and developing countries in their efforts to promote sustainable development. I would like to add that in terms of the negotiations, it starts at the country level. There's the national preparation that is very, very critical. There's the regional, and then there's the global one where we go to COP. At the national level, we have different fora where we come together, different stakeholder groups. We've had CSOs coming together to talk. We've had the government coming together to talk. We have the private sector coming together to talk. And all this culminates into a major stakeholder engagement, which we call the National Pre-COP meeting. And the National Council on Climate Change, I would like to inform you now, is planning that Pre-COP meeting, which will happen on Thursday. I'm sure invitations will be sent out between now and then. So thank you very much, Mr. Richard. I'm sure there are several questions, but we've agreed with the organizers that all questions will come at the end of the 2 sessions. So before we move on to the second session, I would like to use this opportunity to inform us all that in building our capacity, it is critical that we have some documents that should be like our, like our Bible. You should have the convention, the 33-page document that has the articles of the convention. You should have a copy of the Paris Agreement. You should also have a copy of the nationally determined contributions of your country, because the NDCs are the tool for us to implement the Paris Agreement. If you have these 3 documents, you are well on your way to understanding the process. So I would like to crave your indulgence that we move on to the second session before we ask our questions. I'd like to know if Mr. Bisong is here already. Are you here?
Yes, I can hear you, Adeshola. Thank you so much.
So I would like to hand over to Mr. Bisong. It would be nice for me to also introduce Mr. Bisong. Mr. Etta Michael Bisong is a mass communication graduate of Madonna University in Ikija. He began his professional career in 2008 as a reporter for leadership in National newspaper based in Abuja, where he worked for 4 years. Later on, can you mute your mic? Hello? Yeah, thank you. Later in his career, he went on to work at Blueprints, another national daily newspaper, where he climbed to the position of editor, leading the organization's science and environmental desk. His writings have been distinguished by being included on numerous local and international platforms. Etta is a renowned science fellow at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, USA. He is also a Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development Pioneering Fellow in Environmental and Climate Change Reporting. In 2022, he was named as one of the EWA Ellery Pioneering Fellows for his advocacy for promoting sustainable development. He is best known for his work in Anka, a gold mining community in Zamfara State, where over 480 children died, and thousands were afflicted by lead poisoning in 2010 as a result of unsafe and unregulated mining practices. The environmental activist ETA, has worked in different ecological damaged parts of Nigeria, notably Ogoni Land, one of the most environmentally ravaged areas. ETA is currently the Enviro News Nigeria Abuja Bureau Chief. He is also the Director of Programming, Media and Publicity for the Environment News Development Network. The activist is a strong believer in climate science and aspires to use his skills as a trained communicator to demystify natural science and help people understand the relationship between humans and the environment in the hopes of leaving the world a better place than he found it. I've worked so well with ETA, and I'm glad that he's here at this session to take us to the next discussion on the negotiating streams. Mr. ETA, are you ready for us?
Yes, I am. Inshallah. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. Great job. I also like to, good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be here, my humble pleasure. I would like to quickly seize the opportunity to commend the first speaker, my very good brother, Ambassador Richard Omar, for doing a very wonderful job. I think my job is very simple, is to take people through the second phase of this wonderful program that's been going on since the last 3 weeks, and then we are concluding this week as well. So I think for the second speaker today, I would say it's my humble privilege and honor to introduce to you, no any other person but the boss herself, Dr. Iniobong Abiola Awe, who is the director in charge of the Department of Climate Change under the Federal Ministry of Environment. Dr. Iniobong Abiola Awe is a consummate environmental professional, like we all know, who holds a PhD in environmental science and with special focus on climate change policy. Our 20 years of work experience as a leader in the environment and sustainable development space span through the government, the private sector, our work with the NGO and international organization. Beyond our core academic training,
I think we lost Mr. Etta. Can you unmute yourself? Or Tech, can you assist us with Mr. Etta's?
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please proceed.
Right, thank you so much. So, Dr. Awe is currently coordinating the development of Nigeria's national reporting to the UNFCCC. She is Nigeria's climate negotiator at the United Nations Forum on Climate Change Convention and the UN Environment Program, United Nations Environment Program, that's UNEP, and other related forums, and a well-known global speaker on climate change and related issues. Dr. Iniobong Abiola Awe has earned huge exposure through extensive travels, attending several national, regional, and international programs on climate change and environment issues. It would be nice to note that Dr. Awe would have loved to be here today, but due to, like we all know, it's time for COP and lots of activities are ongoing, but she has assigned someone from her unit to represent her, Eddie Young, who will be doing justice to at this topic today. She'll be helping us to look at the various negotiating streams. Top among them is, which I'm going to look at today, we'll focus on loss and damage. Like we observed, the first speaker spoke so much about loss and damage because that's one of the things Africans will be pushing for at this year's COP. So having said this, I would like to ask all of you to kindly give Dr. Awe a warm virtual welcome. Thank you, Dr. Abiola Awe. I don't know if Iniobong is there. If she's there, I think you have the floor now. Thank you so much.
I'm being muted. Okay. Good afternoon, all.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
And greetings from the Director, Department of Climate Change, Federal Ministry of Environment, Dr. Inyabo Abiola Awe. She has directed me to make this presentation on her behalf because she is engaged in another official meeting at the moment. Should have really loved to be here to also train for the civil organization to also hear from her, but she has requested that directed that I join in and represent and make the presentation for her. So just after saying that, I know that the theme of the topic that she was meant to take us all through was negotiation streams. I don't know if the screen can be displayed to show the presentation, please. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So the topic that she was given was negotiation streams at COP28. Global stocktake, finalization of the loss and damage fund details, and other issues that will all be cloud as we go in for the conference of parties. So just if we look into this report is done. Hello, everyone. So you can see the presentation is by Dr. Inyabo Abiola Awe, Director, Department of Climate Change. So if we can go into the next slide, please. So why are we really going for the COP? Just have an introduction of what this year's COP is going to be like, and then the significance of the COP, because at the end of the day, it's not just you take your bags and then what are we going in there for? So we have to understand that these are milestones that have been going on and on and on yearly, coming together to make decisions. And what is this decisions is going to be? This decision is going to guide us through with the constitution of the climate change, like it's called the Paris Agreement. So it's from the Paris Agreement, and at the same time, the commitment that are being made, we have to come to the table, even after all the regional decisions and the local decisions, the national, the regional decisions have been made. This COP, everyone comes together, negotiators come together to have a decision being made on certain areas and key areas, majorly on mitigation, adaptation, and cross-cutting issues. So, and the negotiation streams serve as a distinct avenues to address various aspects of climate change, facilitating focused discussions and agreements, even though at the end of the day, it's not everyone that agree, but then again, there's always a decision that are being made, and this decision has to carry everyone along. So let's go to the next slide, please. So on my next slide, you can have an infograph here, just a bit of ambitious cycle, just a bit of navigating one or two areas, because at the end of the day, all these issues and decisions are being made are going to be reported and then monitored, and then see how the commitments are being targeted, and then if we are going to meet emission target at the end of the midterm or the long-term decisions that are targets that are being put by countries. So let's go to the next slide, please. We can talk about the people are hearing global stocktake. What does it entail when we say global stocktake? And the global stocktake, if you look at the Paris Agreement. That is part of the Article 4 of the Paris Agreement, and everything that the discussions lies within these articles. The decisions lies within those articles, and that's what we move the countries of parties move forward to, depending on the commitment and the target that they've put. So you have a bit of the definition of the global stocktake, and then how significant is this? So because whatever you're pushing for, you have to understand that how significant is this? What will this be for my country, or for my organization? Or what are we pushing for? What is it about? So we look at the significance of this is to track progress. The global stocktake is crucial for tracking and assessing the effectiveness of climate action globally, raising ambition, because by the time you take stock of what you have done, you'll be able to raise more ambition of the targets that you need to meet. And then even with that, there are also challenges and opportunities in the midst of all this. So it has to be the global stocktake. I know that for countries that are being called upon by now to look into their global stocktake, because this is also one of the thematic issues that's going forth in the Conference of Parties, COP28 this year. The global stocktake is going to be, and also issues that are being raised also for countries, because countries will also need funding, and then collaboration and sharing best practices on how to go about in their own countries. Okay, let's go to the next slide. We have the agriculture and food system. That's also another important issue that are being raised. That we can all see that food insecurity is a big issue, and then there's also negotiation points on how to fund agriculture. Discussion also revolve around allocating sufficient funds to support sustainable agricultural practices, emphasize integration of smart practices into agricultural policies. So there are always the negotiation points to knowledge sharing, international cooperation to share agricultural knowledge and best practices of climate resilient farming. So these are areas that are also look into going forward in terms of the area of agriculture and then the food system, and that's going to be another issue that is going to be raised going forward in looking out for COP at the COP28. The next slide, please. We have the issue of the loss and damage fund. And as we all know, last year at COP27, this was also a milestone that was being made after the non-annexed country came together and were able to pull in the annexed country. And when I say the non-annexed, those are countries that are not the ones that are the emitters, so much emitters of this emission, but then the global north, just like the first presenter mentioned, the global north and the global south. So in this issue, we also have the annexed and the non-annexed, and then Nigeria falls under the non-annexed country. So during the COP27, they were able to pull into, if you want to also comment the global north, also pull them into the decision under the climate finance to be able to pull through with the loss and damage fund. And you also consider that the loss and many of those decisions takes years is not something that goes on immediately. It takes years for the loss and damage. It has taken more than 2 decades before it got to this point. And now for this year, the negotiation will look into how to finalization of this fund, how to operationalize the funds, what is being brought to the table. How is this fund going to be operationalized? Is it the least countries, developed countries that are going to benefit, or who are the ones that are going to benefit from this country? So that's another issue that is going to be looked into, and then the negotiation will fall into also in this aspect. So yes, the vulnerable countries, the funds details, direct impact, the level of support available to vulnerable countries, adaptation strategies, clear guidelines to help affected nations, because if the funds are being operationalized, what are the guidelines? So all these are going to be brought forth to have decisions, to negotiate, and then reach a decision on how this is going to be decided. So let's go to the next slide, please. We also have the global goal on adaptation and finance. And this is I know that if we can recall, the first presenter said, for Africa, there is a decision. They know the position of the African countries from the last summit that was held. There was a declaration, and I know that Africa is taking from that position of the Nairobi Declaration, and then looking for domestic and international sources encompassing private and public sectors to come together to look for mobilized funds for adaptation and other forms of resources to see that Africa meets its adaptation needs. And so that's another component, that financial commitment. Nations are expected to make clear financial commitments to support adaptation measures, integration with development. The goal emphasizes the integration of adaptation into broader development plans. So these are areas that are going to be looked into. And it's not that it's going to be like a smooth ride, but then there are still going to be challenges of balancing priorities. So nations must take a balance between mitigation and adaptation financing, ensuring equity. Challenges exist in ensuring that financial support is distributed equitably among nations based on vulnerability. So these are areas that are being looked at as nations as we go. What are these areas that like we've taken the position from the Nairobi summit that we just came back? We know that this is the position Africa has to seek for funds for adaptation needs, to be able to fund its adaptation needs and meet its adaptation needs. So let's go to the next slide, please. The energy transition and renewable. This is another front run issues. The energy transition plan, which I know that we've also talked about the just energy transition plan. That energy transition is not just going to be how do we transition? How is it going to happen? So these are things that are going to be brought forth, agreement and renewable targets. I know that there are countries that are also going to be making their declarations into this into these issues, declarations, and then funding, and how countries are going to be transitioning. How inclusive is this transition going to be made? So significance of this, the role of energy transition. As we can see, energy transition plays a central role in achieving climate goals by shifting from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources. So the negotiation focused on policies and commitment to accelerate this transition. And then significance of renewable energy. Why are we talking about renewable energy? So negotiation is going to also lie on renewable energy, which is a cornerstone for reducing greenhouse gas emission and mitigating climate change. So at COP28, discussion center on promoting investment in renewable energy infrastructure. Then we also have negotiation on renewable target. Countries negotiate specific targets for increasing the share of renewable energy in their energy mix. So we know that for Nigeria, we are seeking for energy mix. There should be an energy mix. So even if we have to transit, being that we are committed to all the global commitment, we have to do it in a just manner, taking everyone all inclusive. And this is what we have to look into. And this is where our negotiation will be tilting into. So let's go to the next slide, please. Phase out down of fossil fuels. Yes, this is another for rationales for phasing out fossil fuels, the challenges and the negotiation strategies. You know that at the global stage, we are under the fossil fuel, and then again, we as fossil fuel countries is not met with what the global world is looking out for. But then again, we have to transit. We have to transit, and we have to do it in a very inclusive manner. And we look at the rationale for phasing out fossil fuel. We have to phase out fossil fuels in imperative to limit global warming and mitigate the impact of climate change. So the negotiation focus on developing strategies for a just and equitable transition away from fossil fuel. And I know that whatever we have to do, it has to be based on national circumstances. Yes, but then again, we have to transit. And nations discuss the economic challenges associated with transitioning away from fossil fuel dependent industries. These are discussions and challenges that are being put forward when this negotiation goes on, and then international cooperation are being sought after, and then long-term planning are also discussions that are also brought into place to see how in a long term what needs to be done. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then we also have the stakeholders engagement. Yes, there are roles for various stakeholders during the negotiations. I know that the first presenter also made mentioned this during the presentation. It's all work together as civil society. There's always the private observing what is happening, and then the private public sector involvement, and then the innovation and the investment, and the public sector provides governance and regulatory framework to all of this. And then at COP28, discussion will emphasize the need for partnership, because there's need. Why I bring up is that there's need for stakeholders engagement to meet all this commitment. There is need, there's always need, there's room for engagement, there's room for collaboration, for knowledge sharing, for joint action to implement effective and sustainable climate solutions. So these are issues that are being raised for engagement, for things to make things to get to the target that we need to meet. There is need for engagement, and these are strongly laid out during the COP discussions. So let's go to the next slide, please. Then transparency and accountability. With all these so he talked about the subsidiary bodies. So at the end, there is always each of the bodies that are responsible for one thing or the other, and under the transparency and accountability, which are the reporting. And you know that for the Paris Agreement, Nigeria has moved from BUR to the BTR, which is the biennial transparency reporting. And then this time around, there is need for transparency, there is need for accountability. And just like I earlier said, with the global stocktake, these are forms of transparency and accountability in what is being done. So the negotiations point related to enhancing transparency. Negotiation will also cover topics such as reporting frequency, data verification processes, and the development of common framework to assess and compare the climate actions of different nations. So these are areas of how the negotiations will fall when fall and being met and being decided during all these issues that are being raised. Let's go to the next slide, please. Regional perspective. These are also considered because every region are being sought after depending on their successful regional collaboration. So this tell us solution based on regional needs. Said COP28 will explore ways to customize climate policies, adaptation strategies, and financial mechanisms to address the specific challenges faced by different regions. Collaboration among regions will be crucial for sharing best practices and optimizing collective effort. The discussion may feature case studies and examples of effective regional partnership that have resulted in positive climate outcomes. So regional perspective are also part of, even when you look at the article, the Paris articles, there's article 4, it's raised about the under the NDC and the adaptation. There's need for regional perspective are always being considered in the commitment that are being made regionally. Let's go to the next slide, please. And then bridging the finance gap, bridging the finance gap, and COP28, and every eyes are looking at the finance. What's going to happen? How is the finance going to be for this year? What's the financial mechanism that are going to be? Because every year we go in, we go out, and you keep hearing the 100 billion that was being put on the table. Nothing has happened. So is there going to be a turnaround? Is there going to be a turning point this year? How is the negotiation going to be like? What are the countries of parties coming into what is going to be decided at this year? So this year's negotiation will assess progress and identify gaps in meeting the financial needs for climate mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damages, and cross-cutting issues generally. The challenges include insufficient mobilization of funds, the need for innovative financing mechanisms. People are clamoring for new financial mechanism to see how to meet countries' commitment. So these are discussions that are going to be made on please, let's still go into the next. Okay, climate justice. So the climate justice also is going to be another aspect, emphasize the fair and equitable distribution of benefits and burdens of climate change mitigation and adaptation. So historical emissions, technology transfer and capacity building. Okay, so climate justice. So this is another area. I know that for the CSO, this is their the PowerPoint of their advocacy. Climate justice. There need to be climate justice in every distribution, equitable distribution of benefits and burdens of climate change, be it mitigation, be it adaptation. The COP negotiation will explore ways to address these historical inequities, including financial support for vulnerable nations and communities disproportionately affected by climate change. Discussion will include the establishment of mechanisms to address loss and damage, still fall into financial contribution, because these are advocacy. These are what is being advocated. So it strikes the note to like, okay, let's make decisions on these issues that are being clamored for. So let's go to the next slide, please. The next slide, please. We'll go into the technology transfer. This was also mentioned, the first presenter also mentioned this also, technology transfer and capacity building to update on technology transfer agreements. The discussion will include the development of agreements and frameworks to govern technology transfer, addressing intellectual property rights and ensuring fair and affordable access for all nations. So these are also issues that also will be raised, because these are key issues on the for going forward to the COP. Let's go to the next slide, please. Because and then looking ahead, so we look ahead towards the COP on the potential positive outcomes for the planet, the global world, to see at this COP what are we looking ahead for? How is it going to be? What are our positions? Because at the end of the day, countries have to come back to say, okay, the post-COP, what were the negotiations? What were the decisions that were being made? Were our positions carried along? What do we take from there? So we have to have position, and then at the end of the day, we also have post outcome, so that we'll be able to know where we are heading to. Where do we go from the decisions that are being made? How favorable are those decisions? Where do we engage further from what the decisions that are being made? Because every decisions also guide us on the next phase of what needs to be done, depending on our positions. So I hope that the collaborations, looking at the collaborations, the commitment and actions are essential for effectively addressing the challenge of climate change in the years to come, and then looking towards the COP28 and see that positions are being made, and hopefully the negotiation, because I know that mostly finance is one of the key issues that are going to be raised on how to sort after the mechanism, if the mechanism of finance are going to be innovated, or what's going to be done. So we look into that decisions and how those decisions are going to be made, and then loss and damage. So those are those key issues that are going to be raised. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, given the platform to present on behalf of the Director, Department of Climate Change. Hopefully, one or two things going forward will be in the favor of the country as we return. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Edidion, for this wonderful presentation. Thank you everyone for listening. I wasn't expecting anything less than what you have just done. And I think with this presentation, for those people who are not really clear about what COP is all about and some of the negotiating streams, I believe with this presentation, you've been able to open their minds, and then on what or some of the issues they should be looking at as we prepare and head towards COP28. So a quick one, I would like to remind the participants to please quickly check the chat box. There's a link there. I will advise that we all click the link and then register our details in there for attendance. We'll need that information for follow-up engagement. I will also advise everyone to also drop their messages. If you have any question, you can drop it at the chat box. We'll pick it up from there, and then we'll just keep on engaging. Thank you, Medidon. For those of you that are listening, she spoke extensively about some of the areas that we're going to be looking at. First, going to the COP. What exactly are we going to the COP to go and do? What are we looking at? What's the significance of the COP? That's one key area I think is very important from a presentation. What are the issues stakeholders are going to be engaging and looking at? She has mentioned them. She talked about, stock take, the global stock take, which of course is one of the topmost things that we're talking about at the COP. She also mentioned the issue of loss and damage, which is very key to Africa. Like we all know, for Africa, the key focus is on how to adapt to climate change issues, and the loss and damage fund is one of the ways to actually help achieve and address that particular goal. She also talked about the importance of energy transition and why it's also key for Nigeria to transit justly, since we're looking towards this direction. She talked about the need for technology transfer, which is also very key to Nigeria and Africa, climate justice and stakeholders engagement. They need to collaborate. So for those who will be at this year's COP, so these are some of the key areas I believe we can be focusing on, collaborate, work together as a country to see how we can actually achieve this particular goal. So please, our advisor will drop our message on the chat box so that for the presenters to respond to any of them. Thank you. While waiting for your questions, feel free to ask your questions. Click on the chat box to register your participation in this event.
So if we now have this which is another thing that
Hello, I urge everyone to kindly feel free to drop your questions, comments on the chat box. We'll pick it up from there and then we'll direct it to either of the speakers based on the area of focus. And like I said, with this presentation, for those of us that are going to be at the COP, we now have at least an idea of some of the key areas that we are going to be looking at. Like I mentioned, loss and damage is one of the key areas, I suppose, for Africa. I mean, like we all know, just this year, it's been approved that the loss and damage funds, at least it's going to be, one of the top ones is going to be the fact that how is the loss and damage funds going to be, distributed. We've had lots of, discussions and mix-up around that particular fund and how it's going to actually be distributed amongst some of these countries. So that's going to concern one of the topmost, how that money is going to be distributed and the beneficiaries is going to, be one of the key issues that we all are going to be watching at this COP. So please, I urge that we'll drop our questions on the chat box. Okay, I think we have one here. Emmanuel Acha. Good afternoon, Emmanuel. Good to have you on board. Emmanuel wants to know what plans are in place to engage subnational. Hold on. Emmanuel wants to know what plans are in place to engage subnationals on climate change. I think if Inelbong is there, I think, sorry, Edijon, I meant to say, if Edijon is there, Edijon, please, can you help us answer this question? Emmanuel wants to know what plans are in place to engage subnationals on climate change issues. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I know that, thank you for that question. I know that last week on the 17th of November, there was a stakeholders engagement for the launch and presentation of the report of mapping of climate change awareness in 36 states of the Federation. And I know that from the ministry, that was a collaboration with the ministry and the Nigerian government governors forum, as well as the Society for Planet. I know that those collaborations also entailed a survey that was done with the subnationals also. And I also know that there are also requests from, I should believe, towards the COP from the subnationals also on how to engage them towards the to be represented for their representation at the COP. There is also a request when they're being put out there, 1 or 2 requests for their representation in each of the states also at the COP also. But really, generally the subnationals are being engaged, and if it's towards the climate change issues, the climate desk officers in all the ministries of the state ministries, the climate change desk officers. So it's a work in progress. So yes, that's for now what I can also. I hope I've been able to answer our question.
Okay. Emmanuel, All right, all right. Thank you so much,
I
Gideon,
know
for that.
sure. Can I
Richard, want
add
to
to
say
that?
something?
Yes, I wanted to
Sure,
add
go
to
ahead.
her that we
Go
have
ahead.
state governments again that have been fully prepared for COP and they are participating, they are hosting side events at the COP. Like some states again are even having side events at other pavilions apart from the Nigerian pavilions at the COP. So definitely there's this preparedness by the some national governments at different capacities at different levels. The only thing is some states are more prepared than some states to participate at this year's COP. That's just it.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've been raising my hands.
Yes, okay, Adeshola. Okay, you have the floor. Adeshola, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you very much. With respect to what Edidion said and what Richard has been able to add, I would just like to add my own voice to it. Engaging the subnational has been through a process before now. There is a platform which Edidion also mentioned. We have the climate change desk offices that have been created in all the 36 states of the Federation, and they report directly to the Department of Climate Change, Federal Ministry of Environment, when the department was the focal point. But now that the focal point is with the National Council on Climate Change, we are continuing using that same platform to engage with the states. And as we all know that the Chairman Governors Forum is a member of the council, so that has been a very good upgrade to our engagement with the states. So far for COP28, we've been having different meetings with the different states. And like Richard said, some states are well prepared to even host side events to showcase what they've been doing. And some states are also, they don't have side events, but they are going for the COP and they are using it for capacity building and bilateral engagements that can further their activities in the states. But in all, I would like to mention that states are being carried along in issues of climate change in the country. Like Richard said, some are more prepared, some are more developed than the others, but constant capacity building, which will also come from the CSOs, is critical in seeing how the subnationals can be well engaged in terms of climate change implementation. There are several projects that go on in the communities at the CSO levels. These are all entry points into the subnational, into the states for engagement. Thank you.
Hello, Adeshola, can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me?
No, what did you say? I didn't get you.
Okay. Please, I would just like to state that we're actually running behind time, and I see lots of questions coming in. Someone here, I would just like to ask this question randomly because of time.
Okay.
Someone wants to know. Someone wants to know what it takes to be a young climate negotiator. Maybe since Ambassador Umar is the Ambassador Umar can maybe help us with that. And then I think the other, what are your thoughts there? Also, one of the participants wants to know, come in. Is there any collective agenda from this platform, those who are going to the COP? I don't know who's going to respond to that now. Most importantly, someone wants to know, how are these loss and damage funds utilized? That's one. I mean, how do NGOs get carried along with these various projects? So I think as a wrap up, I will give the floor to each of the speakers to respond to these questions, and then as a form of closing, to then give your closing remarks so that we can close the meeting. I think Richard, you can start first. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. Being a young negotiator, I know for sure the Ministry for Environment, Department for Climate Change, and NCC have been engaging with young people for a very long time. And like I started engaging with the department since when it was a unit, and it grew to be a department, and today we have the Climate Change Council. So it's all about continuous engagement, participation, and capacity building. And I feel among the young people that have been engaged, like Olumide and Loretta, are young people that have been in this space and have been doing wonderfully well in terms of grassroots participation, community engagement, and even engagement at different platforms. So their nominations never came as a surprise to most active climate change actors on the process. So it's all about you being up and doing with your climate action activities at your level as a young person and your interaction across board. So that can earn you a negotiator. If now we are even having climate justice schools, we are even having some other programs that are centered on negotiation. So as young people, we can take advantage of all these short courses around climate change and build our capacity. Nobody can tell what can come out of it. You are even on this platform with the right people from the NCC and the rest, so they are hearing you. So if you are up and doing, they are watching. So I think that's my response. And my final closing is, you mustn't wait to get to a bigger ocean before you can swim. Start swimming from your small river, from your small stream, and find your way to the bigger ocean. Because most of us started small, even as young people, young students, and we have built the confidence to even have milestones, even in our local government. Now we are going to COP. I think my organization is the one, my community-based organization is partnering with the Ministry for Local Government in Niger State, and we are taking about 4 local government chairmen from the dam communities in Niger State to stream a documentary on flooding and charcoal production in Niger State. I don't know if there's any state that has carried local government. The NCC people are here. You should tell me if I'm the first. They should congratulate me. I'm taking them to COP. They should give evidence-based solution, evidence-based account of their experience in responding to climate change as first responders, because they are the first point of call when the climate crisis comes up. So you can start small. I'm doing local government. I've gone up, down, but I'm coming back local again to regenerate these stories and take these local climate voices out. So you can start from anywhere you are, in your school space, in your local community, in your state. Just do something and let the world know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. Edith Young, your response and your closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you once again, dear facilitator. So I just want to say that for when he raised the loss and damage fund, where is the representative of the stakeholders, the CSO, I guess that was his question. Just to bring to your notice that the operationalization of the fund is what is going to be discussed or decided at the COP, because the funds are the guidelines. Those are what people are looking at. So in terms of what is the representation, I think from that decision, that will then tell what the representation, your representation, and how your activism will look like. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to also learn and also share with what needs to be done, and then the positions and the support going forward. So thank you for the opportunity, and greetings once again from the Director, Department of Climate Change, Dr. Inyabo Abdullahi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Edidion. Please, our warm regards to the Director as well. I see lots of hands up here, but I sincerely must apologize that we are 10 minutes behind time, and it will be difficult to take these questions again. But once again, I thank everyone for your participation. I'd like to commend my dear sister, Adeshola Efiwat, for doing a great job, and also like to recognize the presenters, Ambassador Richard Omar for doing a great job, and Eddie Young Eyo, who has done justice to this topic as well too. Also, I would like to recognize the supporters of this particular initiative, the British High Commission, and as well as the implementers of this particular program, Center for the 21st Century Issues, Society for Plant and Prosperity, as well as Environment Development Network. Thank you very much. I think there will be another wrap of this program on Friday. I will urge everyone to be part of that section too, to ensure that we equip ourselves with the required knowledge and skills as we prepare, for COP28, so that at the end of it all, we know that as we're coming back with a good deal that will help Nigeria to address its climate change issues. Once more again, I thank you all, and bye for now.
Picture, please.
Sorry. Hold on, sorry, please. I almost sorry. Please, let's put on our camera so we can take a group picture. Sorry, finally, I'm sorry. Thank you, Doctor, for that reminder. Sorry, thank you.
Used to my camera.
Let's put on our video so we can all see our beautiful faces. Okay. Technical, are you there?
I see you.
Finally, I can see Richard. Good to see you.
I can see you.
All right. So, technical, are we good? Please turn on your videos for a group picture. All right.
Yes, we are good.
So, all right. Thank you very much for that. So, thank you once more again. I wish you the best, and I look forward to meeting you again next session. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you. Everybody.
Yeah, thank you everyone for